You're listening to Co-Parenting with Grace, the podcast for families raising kids across two homes. I'm your host, Jodi Grace, wife, bonus mom, professional peacekeeper, and your teammate in this beautiful work of co-parenting. So put that red lipstick on, Grace family, and let's get into it. Hi, friends. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share something honestly. I recorded 2 episodes with my counselor, Greg, back in December, and they were powerful. They were thoughtful, deep, and honestly, they felt like therapy sessions for me in the best possible way. And if I'm being transparent, I have sat on them for weeks now. I intended to release them after my first episode of season 2. And I just haven't done it yet. Not because they weren't good, but because they were so good and so weighty that the human in me needed a minute before going back to edit and relive them. So there's something about listening to your own growth in real time that can make you feel really vulnerable. And this conversation on marriage, connection, repair, communication asked me to look at a lot in myself in a very honest way. So I just want to say thank you for your patience. Thank you for allowing me to be human. Greg was so generous with his wisdom, and there is so much here. Practical tools, perspective shifts, things you can apply immediately in your relationships. This conversation is about marriage. It's the first in a 2-part series about staying connected when life is messy, about repair after conflict, and about learning how to communicate in ways that actually build safety instead of eroding it. Next week will be part 2, which is deeply connected on trauma, triggers, and reparenting yourself. I am really proud of these 2 episodes, and I'm really excited for you to hear them. So let's get into them. I'm really excited to get started with my guest today. He is someone who has brought me incredible comfort, understanding, has challenged my thought process. I have relied on this gentleman through the hard. I have cried right here in this very chair that I'm sitting in, this couch I'm sitting on. We have celebrated the good, and he has been there with me through many conversations on these very topics that we're going to talk about today. So my guest today is Greg Ferguson. He's a licensed clinical professional counselor with a Master's of Arts in Counseling. He's been doing this for about 15 years and says his passion is helping individuals just like me and you, helping couples enhance connections, repair relationships, and improve communication skills, which everybody needs to work on. It's a daily battle, you know? But as long as we can focus on those things, we are building a more fulfilling life. And that is something that Greg assists in on the daily with people. So, I think those 3 things are the end all be all: connections, repair, communication. Like, it starts there. So that's why I know this conversation, today's talk, is going to be one that will resonate and will strike a chord in many hearts. I know I'm very excited to talk about it. So welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for being here with me today, imparting all of your wisdom on these topics that touches everyone in some way.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, obviously. And then I listened to you introduce me. I'm like, wow, I sound really impressive. And I'm not. So hopefully your audience will not be disappointed with the lack of wisdom they may hear as we talk. Oh my
gosh, you've got so much, and my journey with you started, can you believe this, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
5 years ago, and I came in as a single woman, and he got me through the early years of dating my husband.
Yeah.
And
there was some tough stuff.
There was some tough stuff, and here we are. Married, there's still tough stuff.
Sure, yeah.
It's just different. The heart just changes, you know?
Yes.
It's kind of like raising kids. My sister always says, you know, she has twins and we have twins.
Yeah.
And she says, the hard doesn't go away. It just changes.
Yeah.
And that can be the same, you know, for all relationships. Like,
yes.
the hard never goes away in life.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just
and
changes.
And part of it's recognizing some of what is hard now is stuff I really wanted 5 years ago.
Absolutely. You just got to choose your
just
hard.
a different perspective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's all worth it. Well, let's start with your background.
Yeah.
A little bit about Greg, and then, you know, about your practice, types of couples and families that you work with.
Sure. In terms of who I work with, one of the most interesting things about the unique job I have is you don't really pick who you work with.
Mm-hmm.
It's who shows up, and it's very word of mouth and recommendations from people who have seen me. And so you go through seasons. I've had seasons in therapy where I was seeing tons of adolescent boys because I had seen one or two, and their moms told all the other moms.
Yeah.
And I've gone through seasons where it's couples, all of whom have had affairs, or couples, all of whom are just premarital. Like, it runs the spectrum. Mostly it is couples and individuals. I still see some kiddos or adolescents, but mostly it's, you know, adult couples and individuals, typically around relationship things.
Yeah.
Partly, I believe, because that's where the challenges show up. Not that being single is easy, but I can manage my own life fairly well. It's when I start trying to do life with somebody else, even if that's just friends, family, whoever, that's where we start bumping into things.
Right.
And so lots of just therapy with couples and individuals. And it truly runs the gamut. I have an 80-year-old couple who are getting married, which sounds interesting to people, but it's important to them that they be married. Both widowed, etc. And then I have couples who show up who are 18, 19, starting life together, figuring out, do we want to be together, etc.
Yeah.
And everything in between.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. You know, my husband and I have had a chance to sit and work with you some, and there's just something to learn for everybody here.
Yeah.
You know, my podcast focuses on blended families, co-parenting dynamics, but today I want to talk a little bit more about couples, you know, and how that plays into the co-parenting dynamic and why you need that strength as a couple. So blended family relationships are uniquely challenging, I would say. I mean, I think I've only ever been in that. So compared to first family marriages, but from a therapist's perspective, help our listeners maybe understand some of those unique challenges and how they show up here on this couch.
Yeah. I talk about it, and most of what I say today will sound very simple, but I talk about it as you've just added an additional layer of people into all of the challenges. And so it makes things more difficult in a unique way. It's not that being a first family is easy, but having a blended family usually for people means a couple of things. There's somebody else involved, not in our family, but they have a perspective or input based on how we parent, or there's other people involved. It also adds a layer of how you see the world or how you see yourself, because for most of us, if we are in a first marriage and then that ends and we start a second marriage, somewhere in there, that first marriage was supposed to be the person that loved me best and never left me and believed in me and all this great stuff. And then for whatever reason, it didn't work. And so that carries, even if you've done a lot of work and dealt with whatever baggage you have from that, it still adds additional baggage, for lack of a better word, that's going to show up with a new partner.
Right.
And that can be good and bad. Having gone through that experience can teach you some of what is and is not important. But it also allows the simple way to think about it. There have been some buttons installed that now my new partner may push once in a while.
That's right.
And I need to know what those buttons are. So it adds, I don't know that it makes the challenges bigger. It just adds more complexity because there's a little bit more baggage in a unique way. Because again, whoever we pick to partner up with, whether it's a marriage or just a long-term relationship, if those go bad, and even if it's totally the other person's fault, which is not really true, but even if I know it wasn't really me, it was them, it still puts a mark on us that is hard for us to deal with, which is, why didn't they pick me? Or why wasn't I good enough? Or why couldn't I make it work? And so then you're in this new relationship and you're like, well, the last one of these I didn't work. Mm-hmm. And again, that is true in all dating relationships, but it's significantly more true when I have chosen to, blend my life with somebody and then it doesn't work. Right. The next time I think about blending my life, it gets significantly scary.
Well, it does, because in that first marriage, when you have children with that person, they never go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
The person that instilled those buttons that you speak of, they're still in the picture, and
they're still probably, unless they've done a huge amount of work to change the dynamic, they're still going to push some of those buttons.
Absolutely they are. And stepmom, stepdad may not even know where those buttons are, that they exist.
Yes.
And you walk in and you're like, oh God, there was a landmine I didn't know was there.
Well, and the kid piece is always hard, because as anybody who has done it knows, parenting's just challenging.
Period.
And then you put blended families together where not only am I worried, okay, does my new partner think I'm a good parent, or, do we agree on how we're doing this, which is never completely aligned. There's always a slight difference of opinion. But in the back of your head, you're always going, and this, son or daughter's going to the other house at some point and going to be reporting on what happened here.
Right.
And what does that person think about it? And it just adds layers of complexity that make it hard.
It does. And when you are unhealed, when you still have, wounds or triggers that you may not even know of yourself, it like you said, just adds that layer of complexity. And your reaction, your response, is going to either drive the bus or, find you dragging behind the bus. So you've got to put yourself first. You've got to put your relationship first and focus on what's the root of the issue, so that we can start, building upon what's happened here, so that we can start from the ground up again. So, today, like I said, today I want to talk about, married couples or, long-term partnerships and how they thrive and how they flail in these situations. Yeah. So what communication patterns do you see in this seat most often in couples who feel stuck or disconnected?
I'll give you a fairly cliche answer, because as therapists, we're blamed a lot for not really giving an answer. So maybe that's what I'm going to do here. But there's not a specific pattern, but there are types of patterns that happen. The first one is one of them, and it's not as much male or female as people assume it is, because there are just as many women who shut down as there are men, and there are just as many men who get emotional as women. So it doesn't always look the way people think it is supposed to. But what typically happens is I have a partner who, when things get heated or challenging, however you want to think of it, they clam up. Along with a partner who, when things are challenging, feels the need to, we must fix this now. And so it becomes, we talk about it in this room as a dance of, I shut down, which makes me feel disconnected if I'm the other partner. So I chase. But the more I chase somebody who's trying to shut down, the further they're going to run away, which exacerbates my need to chase. And eventually I've cornered them somewhere, and they either blow up or really shut down. And it leaves both people feeling just completely disconnected. Whatever the dance is, and there are lots of versions of it, the challenge is when that happens, it feels like we're now further apart, not closer together. And so whether it's, and the same is true in other scenarios. I have had couples who both of them get really big and loud, and their brains quickly go to, I must win the argument, which again is not about being connected. It's just about winning the argument. There are other couples, both of whom shut down. Same kind of thing happens. We're no longer having communication, so we're not fixing anything. It feels a little safer because we're not fighting, but we're not actually doing anything that builds connection. And so there are 3 or 4 dances that happen. The way I try to describe it to people is being aware that whatever you're doing, if it starts to feel like we're getting further apart, that's a signal that we need to then go, well, what do we need to do different? And it's not that any of those things are wrong. For people who shut down and need space to kind of process and think and self-regulate and then come back and have more conversation, there's nothing wrong with that. For people that want to hash everything out in the moment, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it doesn't work for you or your partner, then it doesn't work. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just not productive. And so we talk a lot in here about, because, it's the classic thing people say in therapy, well, I'm just me. This is who I am.
Right.
I'm like, well, yeah, that's great, but it doesn't work. I'm not telling you it's good or bad. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And so it's people getting comfortable going, oh, this dynamic we've created doesn't get us what we want. It doesn't make me feel closer, more connected, more supported. So maybe I should change something.
Right.
And then it's learning how to change, how to do a different dance.
Right. Which is so tough.
Yes.
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
In my own relationship, we've talked, and you and I have talked about how what I think you're talking about is those attachment styles and how they drive some of the patterns that we get stuck in, and how those attachment styles are just trauma responses from how we learn to survive as children. And I want to clarify here, where, as we're talking about these topics today, everyone has trauma responses from childhood. No one is exempt. So even if you think, well, I had a great childhood or I had wonderful parents, I grew up in a nuclear family, this isn't me. Everyone has coping strategies that they learned when they were young. We learn during developmental years that still haunt us today because our brain is always trying to protect you from the thing you no longer or don't necessarily need protection from. So those attachment styles we learn from a very young age. You guys can see me, but I'm raising my hand when he's talking about this person chases the other one until they, no, you're going to talk to me about this right now. I need resolution in order to sleep, in order to breathe. And so let's talk a little bit more about that, the attachment styles and how anxious, avoidant, secure, influence that conflict style. I know for me, I'm a very anxiously attached. I like to say that I am doing a very good job. My husband might tell you something else, but I feel like I'm doing a great job at moving to that more secure place.
Yeah.
My husband's attachment style is more avoidant. And I definitely used to pester the shit out of him probably with, no, I need to talk about this. Whereas he's like, I don't need to talk about this. I need a minute. I need you to give me space. Like, we're not working through this right now. Yeah. So in moments where one partner shuts down and the other becomes more activated, what is happening there? What are we doing there?
Yeah. And I'll give you a pretty simplistic answer. There's a lot physiologically, there's a lot that happens that is more scientific based, and we can go into that if we want to. But I start with the idea, which I hope resonates with people, which is whatever you start to do is because in your brain, that's the thing you think will work or will make you feel better or feel good or get you the thing you need. And I don't say that as if people are selfish. We don't do that intentionally, but it's a lifestyle that we learn to go, oh, if I do this, it feels better. So I should do more of that. And so when we talk about attachment styles, and you described it very well, all of them come from a place of this is how I made sense of the world as a kid. And it's how I either thrived or survived or whatever the word may be, but it makes sense to us. And so all you're doing, like when you talk about you and your husband, if he is shutting down more, that's because somewhere in his brain he learned talking more doesn't work. I'm either going to get in more trouble or it goes badly or something. So it's not, one of the things people have to remember a lot about attachment is I'm not doing it to the other person. He's not shutting down to aggravate you.
Right.
He's doing it because somewhere in his brain he goes, this conversation isn't going to be productive. The safest thing to do is say less words. So I'm going to be quiet over here. And then I'm going to think and process, and maybe we can talk about it later. And your brain goes, no, I need resolution because if I don't have a resolution, I feel disconnected from you. So I need a lot of resolution. I need it right now. Right. Because it doesn't feel good to feel disconnected. When we talk about anxious attachment, And again, this is simplistic, but when we think about attachment, everybody truly is just trying to be attached. I want to be connected to you. Mm-hmm. And the anxious style of that is, oh, I feel disconnected and I'm not going to feel good until we're connected.
Yeah, that feels unsafe.
And so you're chasing because you're like, we need to be connected. If your partner can understand that, it's helpful because they go, oh, maybe it feels like they're pestering me or chasing me or cornering me.
Right.
But they just want to feel closer. Like, so what they want should at its core feel pretty good. Hey, my partner actually wants to be closer to me. Mm. It doesn't necessarily feel that way, but that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
And vice versa. For the partner that shuts down, if you're the partner with them, you have to remember they're doing that not to punish me or withhold or whatever. They're doing that because they think that's the best thing for the relationship. They think having an argument that's going to just keep getting bigger, louder, whatever is not helpful.
Right.
So part of it's realizing whatever they're doing, they think is the right thing to do to make themselves feel better and protect the relationship. So that gives you a little more grace for, oh, whatever they're doing, they think is right.
Right.
But also it's being able then to go, okay, so how do I help them feel safe and yet still connect?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do I give him, in your case, how do I give him some space so he can re-regulate, be in a place where it feels like talking will be more conversational and work well? But he also has to be able to say to you, hey, I'm not going anywhere. We're okay. Everything's good. Don't be so anxious. Not that you can just turn that off, but
right.
But to reassure you, we're still very connected. I just need a minute to breathe and re-regulate, and then we'll talk. And part of what couples have to learn is whatever dance they do, it's the ability to promise and commit to each other, we are going to reconnect. Whether that's in 5 minutes or 5 hours or tomorrow, whenever.
Yes.
It's okay to take space, but it only really works if we both know we are going to come back and talk.
We have to circle back.
And the reason that's challenging, especially like for you, but it's true for most people. We've been in relationships, whether it was with parents or other relationships, where somebody said, I need space. And what they meant was, we will never talk about this again if we don't have to. Mm-hmm. And that leaves you feeling very conflicted because you're like, well, I want to give you space, but we have to talk about this for me to feel good. If you knew with absolute certainty, hey, I can give him 30 minutes and he's going to walk back in this room and we're going to have this conversation, it's easier to ride that out. But I have to trust that they're coming back and going to do the hard thing of having the conversation.
And that gets tricky because that is where trust can be eroded.
Yes.
If you say, we will talk about this, and you never come back to it.
Yeah.
Then that is only going to further feed that anxiety, that anxious attachment.
Yeah.
I know that was something that, early on we really struggled with because the avoidant person does not want to circle back to that.
No.
That's uncomfortable. It puts you in a spot that screams danger, unsafe. I'm not doing this, So, and then when, like you say, it doesn't happen, weeks could go by and I'm going, okay, this isn't working. He's got one foot out the door. That's what's happening here.
If we can't talk, it must mean he's leaving.
Exactly.
And in his mind, he's going, I don't want to talk about this because that puts the relationship at danger. So he thinks he's doing something that keeps you both safe, but you see it very different.
Yeah. And we say I know that a lot of time it is both. And like you said, there are some women that are more avoidant.
Yes.
I think maybe more than average, it's the woman that tends to be anxious and a man that tends to be avoidant.
Yes. No, the generalities are there for a reason.
Right.
They're true. But I always try to remind people they're not set in stone because... And the reason I try to make that clear to couples is often somebody will go, well, what's wrong with me? Because, in the case of what you're describing, all my friends' husbands shut down and they all chase. But in my instance, I shut down and my husband chases or doesn't chase, but I shut down. And then they think something is specifically wrong with them.
Yeah.
Like, no, we all have an attachment style and there's no good or bad ones really. It's learning what they are and then how do I want to be healthier with it? How do I want to be more secure? So there's not a right or wrong way to approach any of this. There's nothing specifically wrong with anybody.
Right.
It is learning that whatever I do, I need to figure out why.
Right.
And then how to, and if I can't identify it, it's hard to change.
Yeah.
So once I can see something, I can work on changing it, but I have to know what buttons are being pushed.
Yes, absolutely. And do you ever see with attachment styles that couples can shift? I feel like, I can only speak to my own situation, but I feel like as I'm moving to a more secure place, I have learned that he's not going anywhere. When he says I need some space, I don't need to get activated. I don't need to elevate. I don't need to get loud. I don't need to yell. I don't. And so I feel like I have learned to respond better to that. But sometimes I think that might throw him off. And he's like, wait a minute. I thought where are we not talking about this?
Yeah.
And so I feel like couples can sometimes shift those roles as you're healing and you're getting to a better place.
Absolutely. One of the things couples have to work on a lot, and the way I describe it, which I know will sound convoluted, is we need, as individuals, to do a really good job telling my partner what's going on in my brain and the behaviors I'm going to change. And that sounds really simple, but what you're describing is a great example of that. When you get to a place where you're like, oh, I'm not going to chase as much. I'm not going to try to be as reactive. If I can say, hey, I'm working on that, then because the dynamic will shift. When you stop doing whatever piece of the dynamic you do, it will throw your partner off.
Yeah.
But without telling them you're doing it, our brains kind of have a negativity bias. And so he could quickly go, oh, well, this means she doesn't care anymore, or this we'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go, hey, this dance we're doing doesn't feel like it works great. So I'm going to work really hard not to chase, to give you some space, to let you have what you've asked for. But I need you to come back, et cetera, et cetera. Then when you change, he has the ability to go, oh, this does feel a little different. Like she's not chasing me. What do I do now?
Right.
Because it may not feel good. If you're somebody who's avoidant and you're with a partner who always chases, there's some safety in that.
Sure.
If you're somebody who, when you get big and loud, your partner comes and comforts you and then when you stop getting big and loud, well, what if they don't come do this thing? And so there is always a dynamic, and they do change depending on each of us. And so it is very important to talk about, hey, I'm working on this part of me, which is going to change some dynamics. Yeah. And we have to adjust to that. But I'm doing it because I want us to do a different dance.
Right. Absolutely. And I can also see how things have changed when I do allow that space that he's asked for. I do, step back and not respond in a overly anxious way. He has come back to me and said, I really appreciated that. It's easier for him to come back and say, okay, now I'm ready to talk about this when I haven't been, no, we're doing it now, my way, my way or the highway.
Well, and part of why it's important, if possible, to tell your partner you're shifting. But even if you don't, if you just know internally you've shifted, you have to give your partner permission to recognize that, because the first time you don't chase, it's going to feel really important to you, like, oh, I did this great thing. But he may be in a place where he's like, well, that feels different, but I don't know why, and I'm still kind of shut down. And he may not respond the way you wanted. Right. And it's easy for people to sit in this room and go, well, I did the thing and they didn't change. Yeah. I'm like, well, you did it once and they weren't aware you were doing it. And so, they didn't change.
It couldn't read your mind.
But if you can, one, articulate it, but also if you can let it happen longer, the pattern starts to be recognizable. Yeah. He doesn't think anything's really changed. He just thinks, well, maybe she was tired and didn't chase me today. Versus, oh, no, she's working on this. And now for 3 or 4 times, she's giving me space. Because part of space is I actually feel that you're not chasing, so I have some space. As long as you're chasing, I don't have space. And even if you're not chasing, but he thinks you want to, I don't have as much space as when my partner goes, no, take some space. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you don't have, it's okay if you say to him, this is really hard for me because I really want to chase. Like I feel anxious right now. But take your time. Go figure it out. That's easier than to take my time and figure out because I'm not still worried you're chasing. Right. And so the more your partner can adjust to the dynamic, the easier it is to switch that pattern quicker.
Yeah.
Because they trust, I'm going to get space.
Oh, it's going, yeah.
And so I can enter that space quicker. I can regulate quicker. I can come back quicker.
Right.
Because I can trust it.
See what the speaking clearly and communicating can do, guys. It's just, we complicate it so much more than it needs to be. But I love what you said a minute ago. You said, and I can be totally guilty of this. Well, I've done it once and he didn't even recognize it, you know? And that can be said for many things, you know? I did this and you didn't even say good job. You didn't even recognize it. But change doesn't happen with one instance. Right. He needs to see, it may take a couple of those. It may take 3-4 times before he can say, hey, I'm seeing a difference here. Or before she can say, hey, I'm seeing a difference.
Yeah, and I can sound crazy sometimes, so bear with me. But that's because most of us have stories in our head. And when I say stories, I don't mean craziness. We just think the world works certain ways.
Right.
And so if he has a story that you always chase and then you don't one particular instance, his brain still goes, well, yeah, but she's still going to chase. This was a one-off. This was like something happened. I don't know what, but she is still the person that's going to chase. For that story to start to change, it has to happen over and over and over.
Proof.
Because your brain needs to rewrite a story, but it takes a lot of experience that is different to change the story based on the experience I previously had.
You create a narrative, and it takes a while to rewrite that narrative.
Yes.
Yeah, there's got to be proof in the pudding.
And it's both sides of it. The simple example is, somebody's like, my wife or my husband always doesn't do this thing, and so I told them, and now they do it. And the partner will go, yeah, but they're only doing it because I told them. Mm-hmm. And if they can let it happen over enough times, they go, oh, I think they actually do this because they care, because they know it's important to me. But it has to happen a lot. And I've been in rooms with the person who, I got my wife flowers, and then it didn't seem to make any difference. And I'm like, well, it was the first time.
Yeah.
She doesn't trust that you'll ever do it again.
Right.
So it takes a lot of pattern recognition for our brains to go, oh, maybe something's different.
Yeah, absolutely. We just experienced this in the last couple of weeks where he did something that I have encouraged and wanted him to do for a long time. But the way that he went about it still upset me. And he was like, what are you even talking about?
I did what you
this
wanted.
Is exactly what you have wanted me to do. I thought you would be happy with this. And, all I could see was what you didn't do, or the way you did do it. And so that can happen in many different, areas of your relationship. Yeah. And I think being able to step back, and I wanted to make sure in that moment that he knew I am not upset at what you did. Right. I am so proud of you.
I like what you did. Keep doing it.
I can still, and being able to recognize that and say, I am so proud of you for handling this, for finally saying what you said, or finally having, this that you did. I wish you would have handled it a little differently. It still hurt me in this way. And being able to communicate those things is huge in making progress in a relationship. It still hurts to hear you didn't do it the way I want, and it's not necessarily you didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it, the way that for our relationship, I would have appreciated if it were handled this way.
Right.
So there's so many nuances, and you can feel like, well, I did this way, and you didn't notice it. Right. You didn't notice the positive.
Right.
You only noticed what I didn't do.
Well, and I don't want to take us down a tangent, but the reason that's so important for most of us, if you start, and I know when relationships are challenging, it doesn't always feel this way, but if you start with the idea, almost everything I do, I'm trying to make my partner's life better.
Yes.
And the reason it bothers me when you criticize what I did was not really that you're criticizing it. It's that, no, I did it because I wanted you to be happy.
Right.
And it didn't work. You're not happy. And so I don't like that.
Right.
And so it's the ability to always realize I need to appreciate the effort. And then, yes, I can say more about what I desire, want, need, how it needs to be slightly different. But I have to remember my partner was making an effort to care for me well. And so if I can say, I really appreciate the effort and I appreciate that you care, it just feels better when you change it this way or do it this way.
Right.
You're trying to remind your partner, I just want to feel better. I appreciate what you were doing was to try to make me feel better, but here's what actually makes me feel better.
Right.
And then that's always a negotiation because none of us do it perfectly.
No. And being able to be in a healthy enough spot that when someone says that to their partner, it's not taken as a criticism.
Right.
They're like, well, you're just complaining at me again.
Right.
You know, this is what we always do.
Yeah.
It has to be done in a very constructive way,
Yes,
a respectful way. And that is built through having better communicated conversations.
Yes.
And being able to see the other side. So, like I said, I can only speak to my own dynamic, but that some of our biggest triggers for conflict, and I'm just talking about me and my husband, came from, you know, in our earlier years, my own insecurities in my relationship.
Sure.
Especially when it came to the boy's mom. And his, you know, some of that conflict might have come from his anger towards, you know, the boy's mom from whatever went down between them that was unhealed. But what are some of the most common triggers for conflict inside relationships that are part of a blended family that you see?
I will answer this probably in a way that's not directly answering your question.
No,
I should
go right
say
ahead.
that when I do it. But I think it tracks with what you just described, which is I don't know that blended families have different or specific challenges as much as what you described. All of us bring into a relationship, what are the things I have not healed? What are the wounds that I haven't worked on? What are the buttons that I don't know are still buttons?
Right.
And we may have more of those because of the blending and what has happened in the previous relationships. But it's all of those things that we are unaware of that then trigger us quickly. And blended relationships like you're describing, you go into it with, hey, I already have some wounds, and this person who I've now chosen either is not meeting those needs or hurting those wounds, or however you want to think about it. He had some wounds from the relationship with the boy's mom that you had nothing to do with, but it's still a thing of, but if I push those buttons, they get triggered.
Right.
And so I don't know that there's specific things from blended families as much as there are in all of us. What are the wounds I have? What are the fears I have about me that I have not dealt with?
Right.
And until we deal with them, they're going to show up.
Right.
We can hide them well. We can cover them up. We can even kind of manage them sometimes, but eventually they all show up.
They do.
And so you have to do your own work to figure out what are those wounds, who put them there, how did they show up,
right,
and how do I heal them?
Yeah.
And your partner can help with all of that, but it's up to us as individuals to figure out the woundings.
For sure. And I think, you know, the boy's mom and I are in such a great place. We have really, you know, found a great working relationship, even a friendship, I would say. And she and I have said that we have been a mirror for each other. You know, being in each other's lives has allowed us to see our own insecurities in ourselves or bring out what we needed to work on. That had nothing to do with one another, had nothing to do with my husband, just the things that were created when we were younger that have just manifested over time. And then you get into this relationship, this raw, real place where you are raising kids together. You're making, you know, life decisions together across two homes. And it brings those inner child wounds to the surface. And you can either let them sit and fester, or you can address them and say, okay, no, I'm going to manage this and deal with this because I'm not going to continue to let it be a scab on this family that I now have built.
Right. No, there are two ways to think about it. One is that real intimacy is not, and I don't mean just sexual intimacy, all intimacy is being able to say to the person I'm with that there are pieces of me I don't like about me.
Sure.
I don't really assume you're going to like them because I don't even like them. But when we're dating, coupling up, we all do some sort of dance of, well, I want you to see all the shiny sides of me, and then I like you, so I'll let you know a little bit more about the unshiny parts of myself. but I don't want to do that too quick because what if you leave? So we're always in this tension. And what happens over time is hopefully we've become intimate enough that, the closet door's open and you see all the stuff in the closet. Yeah. Here's all my junk. And I don't even like all of it. I just haven't fixed all of it yet, but I'm working on it. So that when it arises, your partner goes, oh, yeah, I knew about that. And we're working on it. And hopefully it gets better. And I know you're doing your own work with it. Because it's easier to work on things when I don't have to hide them. Yeah. Or I'm not ashamed or feel guilty of them with a partner. And so the more you can get good at going, oh, my partner doesn't think I'm perfect. So let me talk about the wounds. And often our partners both bring them up, as you're describing, or in blended families, other people will in that dynamic will bring them up. They often also can help point them out in ways that are caring. Hey, it feels like every time we talk about this thing happens, you react this way. Tell me more about that. Help me understand. If I can be curious about anytime my partner gets angry, hurt, shut down, something, if I can go, hey, tell me what's going on and not feel like it's about me, then it's easier to go, oh, yeah. You have a little wound there that you should do something with. Right. But I'm not judging it. I'm like, that's what's going on. Yeah, if I can remember it's not about me, it's easier to sit in it and always go, oh, that was installed long before I showed up.
Exactly. But now you've got a wound that's bleeding on me. So could you clean it up?
Yeah, let's figure out how to fix that.
For sure. I know I can... I like to think I'm a pretty self-aware person. So here's a self-aware moment. When my husband brings those things up with me, hey, I've noticed this, or it's so easy to be defensive and say, hey, quit. Are you picking at me? It's a wound. That's a trigger for me. Why do you point it out? And he has to remind me, hey, I'm not your mother. I'm not your father. I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to, I'm your partner. Yeah. I'm your accountability person. Help you. Yeah. And so you have to be willing and open when you do open that closet. When you move in with someone, you open the closet, that they're going to see those things that you don't like about you either. Yeah. And it has to be a safe space. Yeah. It has to be a space that it's okay for me to show you those things and know that you're still going to hold my hand and talk me through them.
Right.
Not do it for me. There's a fine line.
No, I will care for you while you deal with things.
Deal with it. Mm-hmm.
And part of it that I think is important to add is we typically are more critical of ourselves than others are. This goes back to the parenting, especially in blended families sometimes. It's really hard to parent some teenager that's given me attitude if also, while I'm trying to figure out the best way to deal with that kid, I'm looking over my shoulder at my partner thinking, they don't think I'm a very good parent. So now I'm trying to keep two people happy. And that's really challenging. But if I can go, hey, sometimes I worry that you think I'm not a great mom or dad or whatever. And my partner goes, actually, I think you're a great parent. Now, do I wish you could change this or that? But if I can turn off the narrative of I'm not a good whatever. Right. They just would like me to do some small behavioral changes. That's a very different thing I'm dealing with. And so it's always reminding myself when my partner points out one of those wounds and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. I have to remember it's probably way bigger to me than it is to them.
Absolutely.
The parenting one shows up in here a lot, and this will sound sexist, but it's gender specific.
Yeah.
More women feel like my partner thinks I'm a bad mom, but it's because they carry around a lot of narrative in their head of because I'm working, I'm not a good enough mom, or because I'm not working, I'm not a good enough mom, or because they are comparing themselves to some perfect thing in their head. And guys do that, but in a different way. And so then if I think, well, my husband or my partner doesn't think I'm very good, it gets big really quickly. And most of the time, and people are pretty honest in this room, most of the time when we're talking about that, their partner's like, no, I think you're a great mom. Where does that come from? Yeah. Now, does it mean that time you were yelling at the kids, I wish you hadn't been yelling? No. There are things I wish could be different or behaviors I might want to change, but I don't think you are bad or you are whatever.
That's your own narrative.
Yeah. And the more couples can talk about that, then it gets easier to go, oh, if I blow up at one of my kids someday, because we've all done it, it doesn't mean my partner thinks I'm a bad parent. It means they realized I had a really bad afternoon.
Right.
but it was once. And I apologize to my kids and we move on. Like, it's the ability not to believe that my partner thinks as badly about me as I do. Because we usually, the narrative in our head, the story in our brain is way harsher than theirs is.
For sure.
Almost all the time.
Yeah.
Not always, but almost.
But almost. I think that would parlay into other aspects of your relationship. Like, if I say I want to have sex once a week instead of once every 2 weeks, that doesn't mean that I think you're a bad partner. It doesn't mean, I'd like to see this changed. You know, I'd like us to have dinner as a family 3 nights a week at least. You know, that doesn't mean that I think you're working too much is a problem.
Right.
It means that
I have a desire, or I have a need, and I always try to teach couples. And again, I say this knowing I don't do it well either, so I should always admit that when I'm talking. My wife will listen to this at some point and laugh like, oh, really? You're the
Practice
expert.
what you preach.
Yeah. My kids the same way will be like, really? It's the ability to go, I just have wants or needs, but I have to be able to tell you why. Because often, I'll take what you just said. If somebody says, hey, we need to have dinner 3 nights a week, and you're the partner who's working, and now you've got to rearrange your schedule, and it feels like you're just being told you work too much.
Right.
But if I can go, hey, what problem does that solve? Like the dinner 3 times a week is a solution to a problem, but we haven't said what the problem is. If you go, well, the problem is I don't feel like we have enough time together as a family or whatever, dinner is one solution. It also could mean, well, I still get home late from work, but also then when I get home late, we play games for an hour as a family. Like, there are lots of solutions to things. Our brains are wired to find solutions, but what most of us learned, and there's nothing wrong with this system, it's just the way it works. You're taught in school to have the answer, not to explain why.
Right.
And in work as well, your boss asks you for something, you give an answer. You don't spend a long time telling him or her why I did this or what I did or whatever. But with your partner, if you can go, oh, I would like to have sex this often, but it's because in my head, when we have sex, it means this. You love me, or you need me more, or it feels connective, it makes me feel like we're okay. It helps your partner go, oh, that's why you need something.
Right.
And I may or may not agree with dinner 3 nights a week or sex every so often or whatever, but it helps me go, and what are the other things I can do that would help you feel better?
Yeah.
Because if we, and all couples do, whether they have a whole lot of sex or a little bit of sex, it's almost never that the male and the female agree exactly on how much and how often and what it looks like and all that kind of stuff. But if you go, oh, but also you just need more physical touch to feel like I care about you, notice you, desire you. It doesn't mean I don't ever want sex, but I need both.
Right.
And so it's being able to go, how do I meet your needs for connection? Not just the solution you gave me, but what problem were you solving?
Right.
The easy example for that in here is lots of couples show up and they're like, well, I know one thing we need to do. We need to go on dates because we don't spend enough time together.
Yeah.
But I always make them tell me why they're going on a date, because if in her head, because it's usually her that goes, I know, we need to do this stuff. If in her head, we need to go on a date so we have more time to talk and just enjoy, being with one another. But she says to him, we have to go on a date. He's like, okay. So I planned a date to go to a concert somewhere. And it may be a great concert and a great date, but we didn't talk. And so I haven't solved the problem.
Right.
And then he's mad the next time they're in here because she's talking about how they really didn't go on a date. And he's like, yes, we did.
And he's like, I did what you wanted.
Yeah. And so if I know what the problem is you're trying to solve, I can get closer to the right answer. It doesn't mean I'm always going to do it well. But dating's the easy one because so many couples are like, well, when I ask, they always pause because they're like, well, I don't know why I'm saying we should go on a date. And I'm like, well, you should figure that out before you plan a date.
Yeah.
Some people want to feel like my partner just has fun with me. We haven't done anything fun in a long time, and I want them to plan something that reminds us we have fun together.
Yeah.
Some people want to go on a date because if we go on dates together, that's usually then when we had sex afterwards. So I need a date that leads to that.
Right.
But if your partner doesn't know that's the expectation, it's going to go bad.
Either way. Yeah.
And so it's being able to go, what problem am I trying to solve in my brain? And I need to let you in on that.
Yeah.
Not just tell you the solution.
Right.
Because you might do the solution, but it doesn't quite match up with what I need.
No, and somebody's going
Yes.
to be disappointed. And
Yes.
then, yeah. It goes back to that communication, being able to articulate what you want and need.
Yeah.
I know that's hard for some people. Sometimes
Yes.
they don't even know what.
Well, and I was going to say,
they want
part
or
of
need.
that is people have to stop first and go, well, why do I want to go on a date?
Yeah.
Like, what does it say to me? Does it say you enjoy spending time with me? Does it mean you want to show me off? Does it mean we like to be silly?
Yeah.
Is it about sex? Is it like, I have to figure out what I expect first.
Right.
And then I can at least maybe tell my partner.
Yeah, because then that'll dictate what the date is,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
And that applies to so many different things. You know, in an effort to heal and grow, I think we have to recognize our patterns. You know, we get stuck in
Yes.
loops, especially as couples, partners. It's can apply to co-parents as well, you know, communication loops or negative loops. How can we interrupt repetitive arguments or negative communication loops?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to give you what I think of as simple answers that I know are not simple to put into practice.
Sure.
But I always start with identify and recognize them. And I still use it some, but I literally used to have a worksheet that I would give couples where they have to describe those negative loops. Like, when you do this, I do this. And then when I do that, you do this. And they can pretty quickly describe it because most of us recognize those patterns.
Right.
So I have to go, oh, so I'm going to do something different. But like you said earlier with the attachment styles, when I do something different, I have to let my partner know that, or they're going to keep trying to stay in the same dance.
Right.
And so part of it's being able to sit with each other and go, okay, I don't like that we're stuck in this loop. You do this, I do that. And it's not about blame, because wherever you start, your partner can always go further back. They can go, well,
Sure.
I did that because 3 days before you did this. And I remind couples, well, how far back are we going? Because you can go back to like, well, I'm that way because when I was 4, mom or dad did, like, there's always some
We can
reason.
trace it back.
So I'm like, this isn't about blame. It's about going, oh, I don't like where we end up. So let's do something different.
Right.
And I jokingly say to couples a lot, you're really just trying to interrupt the pattern. You're not really trying to fix it yet. And what I mean by that is you may come back next session and tell me you interrupted it, and then you had the biggest fight you've ever had about something else or about,
Right.
but you're changing the pattern, and then you can figure out what pattern do we want to have. So a lot of it is recognizing when they do this stuff, why do I react the way I do? What need is not being met, or what button does it? Like, I got to figure out my piece of it. As if I don't expect my partner ever to change, but if I want to change the dynamic, I'm going to do something. Yeah. And that's unfair. And yes, you should expect your partner, if they're healthy, to make changes. But I have to start with, I'm going to do something different.
Right.
I'm not going to let it rattle me, or I'm going to stay in the conversation, or whatever the loop is. And even, you mentioned the boy's mom, it's being able to go, I just don't like that we have this relationship. I would like it to be better. So how do we make it better?
Right.
I tell couples a lot, most discussions end up being arguments because the other person doesn't know what I want, or doesn't know what I want to feel, or doesn't know what my goal is from this conversation, however you want to think of it. If you can literally start by going, hey, I want to talk to you about this. We always have this problem. I would like for this thing not to happen. So I'm going to, with couples, sex is an easy example. So they come in here and one of them's like, well, I want to talk about our sex life. And the other one, you can watch their body just literally react, because they're like, oh, great, we're going to have this conversation where I'm not enough and I'm not this. If their partner can go, that's not what I'm saying. And that doesn't mean it turns it off for their partner. I get that they still hear it. But I don't want you to feel blamed or any of that. I want to talk about how we make it better. So if you can tell a partner, this is what I don't want you to think, or this is what I'm not trying to do. And then I always call it the magic wand idea. if I had a magic wand and this conversation went perfect, which it's not going to, but if it did, here's what I hope happened. I hope we both end up being great moms for these kids, and I want us to be good friends. And like, whether that happens or not, who knows?
Yeah.
But if you can tell each other that, then the person you're talking to goes, oh, we probably kind of want the same thing.
Yeah.
We just may come at it from different places. And then you basically go, and kind of here's what I think the conversation's going to look like, because I don't have a magic wand. But if you can lay out for people, I don't want this to happen. I would love for this to happen. I don't think it's going to. And here's kind of my expectation. It helps get you out of the patterns, because the moment then you go, hey, I want to talk about our budget. And your partner's like, oh, every time you go, no. Remember I told you this is not about blame, or I don't want to tell you can't spend any money, or I just want to talk about how do we get to somewhere.
Right.
Then they can stay in it longer.
Yeah.
You're just trying to stay connected. The way you interrupt patterns is not falling into the ones that disconnect the conversation.
Yeah.
And so if I can listen better to what my partner wants, needs, what solution they're looking for, what problem they're solving, I may not agree, but they will feel understood and heard in a different way, and then we can work to some resolution.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it always end up nice and neat, but most of us get in arguments because, and this is simplistic, but our brains tell us we're right. Like every choice I make, and I'm smart enough to know I'm not right, I'm wrong a lot. Yeah. But my brain, when I make a choice, thinks it's the right choice, at least the right one for me. And we all think that. So when we argue, we're like, no, if my partner just had more data, they would agree with me, because obviously I'm right.
Right.
And so we keep thinking if we tell them more information, they'll agree. Versus if you can go, no, tell me more. Tell me all about why and how and what you want. And I'm going to listen until I really understand, but not just really understand. I have to make you believe I understand.
Yeah.
Then when somebody goes, yeah, I disagree, there's no more information to give them. They understand me, my perspective, what I think, what I believe, how I feel.
Yeah.
They just have a different choice. Then I can stop the argument. I'm like, oh, well, tell me why you don't.
Yeah.
And then they're allowed to share all of their side. I call it taking turns, and I know it sounds silly, but it's the ability to go, I need to be completely understood first, and then I can listen to you, and I'll try to completely understand you, and then we have the conversation about, now what do we do with this if we have disagreement. But neither of us is trying to convince the other one anymore. Now we're trying to, in a sense, negotiate, well, how much do you care, and how much can you meet me in the middle? But I'm not trying to convince you by giving you more data. We have all the data. We just see the world differently.
Right.
So part of interrupting patterns, whether it's with a spouse, blended families, etc., is identifying the patterns, being able to go, I don't like this. It doesn't work.
Right.
And then going, here's what I hope we could do. Because most of us will go, well, I hope we have a better conversation too. And so we can get on board with, I want this not to feel so ugly all the time. Yeah. Now, I also will say, because it happens in this room, there are people who don't want better conversations. And you have to get comfortable going, oh, this doesn't work with that particular person.
Right.
They're in a place right now where they want to be mad, or they want to be mean, or they want to be whatever. And, okay, I'm not going to engage a lot with it, but I can't keep trying to fix it. But sometimes that ability to disengage also helps them do something different.
Yeah.
Not always.
For sure.
There are just people in the world sometimes that don't want a solution. They just want to feel whatever they feel.
Right. And you have to be allowed to feel.
Yeah.
They're your feelings. It's your experience. And, man, you had so many gems there. That was such a good, being understood and being heard. Man, that drives a lot for me.
Yes.
And I would wager that drives for a lot of people. And if you can provide that for your partner, just to not get your defenses up long enough to say, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Sometimes I will not necessarily preach, but try to convince my husband. And he will say, you don't have to convince me of anything.
Right.
That's not what we're doing here. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Okay, calm down. I don't need to, I don't have to. I'm not trying to prove anything to him. I've learned in my marriage that having an open mind can do wonders for a relationship. When I came in, I, not in a narcissistic way, but I thought I knew best, right? Because up to that point in my life, I did, right?
I'm making decisions for me, and my life works really well.
Exactly. And then when you get into this partnership, you are agreeing to share someone else's perspective, not necessarily share their perspective, but understand and be willing to hear their perspective and allow space for their perspective and their opinion as well. And, it has honestly opened my eyes to several different things by hearing my husband, learning and asking questions about, why do you feel that way? How did you get to that opinion of something?
The curiosity piece is so important because it doesn't, and part of where I think we struggle with it as people or as humans is that we think asking questions or being curious somehow communicates that we're in agreement, and it doesn't have to. I can ask lots of questions about something to really understand my partner and still at the end of it go, I think that's crazy.
Right.
Like, I think I understand how you get there, but that makes no sense to me at all.
That's not for me.
But in being curious, most of the time I learn enough to go, oh, those dots connect. I can see where you get there. It's rare that if you really understand somebody, you disagree as vehemently. Now, you may still disagree. Yeah. But most people make sense in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so if I can really work to understand them, I'm like, oh, if I believed this or thought that, if I agreed with one part of what you believe, the rest of this makes sense. And so feeling understood, feeling seen, heard, believed, changes the dynamic of a conversation, because once you feel heard, then we're just talking.
Right.
I don't have to win an argument. I'm not trying to convince you. Now we're just talking. But I have to trust that you're really going to listen.
Right.
And we listen. One of the challenges in this room is lots of people think they're really good listeners, and they are good at listening to information. They are not good at hearing the undertone or the undercurrent of why this matters to somebody or what it means to them. Like, they know all the data. I used to, and I still do it sometimes, I will do an exercise in here, which sounds, again, very simplistic, where I have one person tell the other person something. And all that's required of the other person is you're going to repeat back what this person said to you. Mm-hmm. And early on in therapy, I was always surprised that often, I'm cheating because I'm over here and I've got my notepad. I'm writing down what the first person is saying. Mm-hmm. Their partner says it back, and I'm kind of checking it off. And I'm like, man, they did it perfectly. And sometimes almost word for word. And the person that started goes, yeah, that's not what I mean. And it's not because the words are different. It's because they know each other enough to go, I still know that what I said, what you heard, and what I said, even though you said it back to me, we still aren't in agreement on what we're talking about. Right. And so there's a lot of clarifying that has to go back and forth, where people are allowed to go, let me nuance this a little, or let me tell you more. And often we get in arguments very quickly because we take something someone said and then start arguing about it, and it has almost nothing to do with really what they were trying to communicate. Right. And so listening is about going, what did you really want me to hear? What did you want me to understand? Why is it important to you? It's not about the data that's passed back and forth. Right. And that's hard because most of us, whatever job people are in, the data is really important. And Absolutely. So we get really good at understanding data and making decisions and what makes my boss happy or what makes the client happy or the customer happy. So we're good at that piece of it. We're not always good in our partner relationships at going, but what's the point? Like, why does this matter to them? Right. And if I don't know that, I don't have enough information yet. Yeah. I can understand the black and the white, but if I don't get the gray area, if you don't explain the gray area to me, then I only know what you've given. Right. Yeah, I got to understand the emotion behind it. And the challenge with that is, even if I get it right based on the data, I don't know what to do next time. Mm-hmm. Versus if I can understand the why, then I know my partner in a way where even if we're talking about something different, my brain goes, oh, but remember this things really important to them, and it feels like that's at the bottom of this conversation, just like the one we had 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so now I know you better, and I have more tools to deal with that than if every time we're having a conversation is just based on data, then every conversation is new.
Yeah.
I have no basis for history, really.
Yeah.
So the more I can know why you care about things and what matters to you, then data is just less important.
Right. You got to hear it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to hear what they're saying. Well, let's talk a little bit about if that conversation doesn't go well and it escalates. Let's talk tools and skills here. What are some practical tools you can recommend for de-escalating tough conversations before they spiral?
Yeah. And that happens a lot. And I will say it because I sit in rooms with people where we're really working on that. And I'm here to help mediate and mitigate.
Yeah.
And it still happens.
Right.
So one of the things I try to remind people is it's tough to change those patterns. So if anyone's listening and they go, man, we always spin, I'm like, yeah, that's a hard thing to change, but it is possible to change it. Couple of tools on the front end and then in the middle and then on the back end. The first one is a little bit, and this will be repetitive, but it's what I said earlier, which is if you know it's kind of going to be a hard conversation, the ability to invite your partner in and say, hey, we're going to have a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And here's what I would like, and here's what I'm not trying to do, and that sounds simple, but most of us, before we have hard conversations, we have a lot of practice in our head. I'm going to say this. In my case, I'm going to say this. I think my wife will say that. I probably will need to say, like, I've rehearsed this.
Yeah. Played it out.
And some people do that for days. And then they start a conversation with their partner who's in the middle of 1,000 things in his or her head. And they need time to catch up, even to just join the conversation. And if I've rehearsed a lot, then when I start, I dive really deep in, and very quickly they're defensive because they feel like they're at a loss, or they are not as caught up as me, so they're already at a disadvantage. So now I got to defend myself.
Yeah.
So one of them is just being able to go, hey, I know when we talk about our finances, we usually end up in an argument. I would love to talk about them, but I don't want to have an argument. I don't want you to feel this way. I don't want you to think this. I'm not trying to do this. Here's what I hope happens. I hope at the end we both feel like we're more on the same page.
Right.
Because we can all kind of agree with what we want. Then we're figuring out how do we get there. So some of de-escalation is just being honest about when we talk about this stuff, it probably gets sticky and myself or you escalate or shut down. I'd like us to figure out a way to keep talking. So do that on the front end. The other tool, which will sound odd to people because it's complicated, but it's remind each other that you can talk about both conversations at the same time. And what I mean by that is, now we're going to talk about our finances and we're passing data back and forth.
Yeah.
I think we spend too much or don't save enough or whatever. But I also need to be able, and you have to agree to this with your partner, in the middle of that conversation, I'm allowed to go, you know what, when you said that thing you just said, let me tell you what happened for me. Like that pushed my button and it makes me angry. Because if I can do that, then I'm like, oh, wait, but I committed to stay in the conversation and, okay, let's get back to talking about data. But two things, I've recognized my own emotions and I have to deal with them. And I also give my partner a chance to go, oh, yeah, I saw that. Like, I could tell you got mad.
Yeah.
But if I admit it, and then my partner can go, again, I wasn't trying to make you mad. So tell me what button I pushed. I'm sorry about that. Let's keep where we can help each other manage the emotion. But you have to be able to talk about it in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah.
When this happened, I don't know why that set me off, but man, it did. And my partner goes, sorry about that. I don't even know what I said exactly, because most of us, we're processing verbally. We're not planning, we're not wordsmithing what we say. And then our partner reacts and we're like, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So it's the ability to do both, because that helps keep us regulated. So those are two tools. One is when it starts to escalate, you've committed to each other that you can, in a sense, interrupt it. Hey, I see you shutting down. Hey, I see you getting really loud. Can we take a breath? Can we take 5 minutes? Whatever you've agreed to. This will sound incredibly silly, but one of the tools that works for some couples is they've come up with a word that is absolutely silly, makes both of them laugh because it's nonsensical, and they're allowed to say it in the middle of tough conversations because it interrupts that pattern.
It's your safe word.
Yeah, and both of them are like, oh, wait, yeah, that's silly, and I got to breathe and walk away and come back in 2 minutes. You try to grab it before it gets so big, because what makes it big is the emotions start to come up, and then my brain gets into the normal pattern with those emotions, and then I'm just gone.
Yeah, then you're offline.
Yeah, so you're trying to regulate each other, help regulate each other before it gets too big. And then the other side of it is if it gets too big, you're always allowed to go, hey, this is not working. We'll come back to this. And again, you have to trust that we're coming back.
Yes.
But, and this is hard for couples when it is challenging, asking each other to do this is a big challenge. But it's the ability to come back and go, hey, that's on me. I got really upset. And I'm allowed to feel that way. Like I didn't like what you said, or didn't like the way you said it, or whatever. But I need to manage that better so we can stay in the conversation. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Can we do it again? And I tell couples a lot, and this will sound silly, but if you're 2 minutes into a conversation, it starts to blow up, or you're 2 hours into a conversation and it starts to blow up, the moment you recognize it, it's okay to go, hey, walk back out, walk back in, and let's start over. And it'll sound dumb, but it's hard to stop a conversation in the middle and adjust how I feel and think and whatever, and then keep going.
Yeah.
It is almost easier to go, okay, just pretend we didn't have that last 20 minutes. Walk in and ask me the same question again. Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
And again, that will sound silly, and both of you are like, well, that's stupid, because neither of us doesn't remember that we just had the conversation. But it allows your brain in a weird way to go, oh, yeah, we're having a different conversation now.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fix the one we just had. We're just starting over.
Yeah.
We are better at do-overs than we are at stopping something in the middle and fixing
Shifting, yeah.
And again, that'll sound simplistic, but you're just trying to interrupt the patterns so they don't get big.
For sure. I think a lot of what we have talked about requires emotional safety in a marriage.
Yes.
And I would wager that's a struggle for a lot, is to, if you're out there listening and you're like, well, we try this, but it always ends up in that fight, or he gets defensive, or she gets defensive, or, she says, I always do this, or, you have to offer that emotional safe space for your partner to bring up, hey, I'm feeling this way, and not respond with the, oh, here we go again. It's got to be that safe spot your marriage does, your partnership does, in order for these things to progress forward to a secure, healthy spot.
Yeah.
That and self-regulation. I think emotional safety and self-regulation, I could have done the entire episode on those two things alone. Those are two things that my husband and I work on daily.
Yeah. Well, and they're truly tied together, because it's hard to create safety or space for someone if I can't regulate well.
Right.
And vice versa. I don't feel safe with someone if they can't regulate well.
Yeah.
And so it is very much being able to manage my own story, my own narrative, and manage my own emotions in order to create that space for my partner.
Right.
And that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have big emotions or big feelings, but I manage what I do with them. I'm allowed to say, man, that thing you said just cut me and it hurts and I'm angry. But I can do that in a way that keeps the conversation going versus now we're at war with one another.
Yeah, because I firmly believe once you learn to control your own reactions, because let's be honest, that's maybe the only single thing we even have control of.
Yes.
That's when you change that loop. That's when you change the pattern. Whoever does it first give room, give space for your partner to do that too, and know that they may not do it in the same amount of time that you do.
Yes.
That's when the magic happens. You know, it feels kitschy to say, or sometimes I feel, you know, we use words that we have learned in therapy so much that it's like, are we running a therapy session here? But to be able to say to one another, I'm feeling really dysregulated right now, and I'm going to step away from this conversation so that we can come back to this and it not escalate from here. And that's something that we have both, in my marriage, have really gotten to a place that we can say, and man, it took work.
Yes.
It has taken work, and it's imperfect. I mean,
sure.
we are still
no one ever
capable
does it perfectly
of blowing up at one another, but
but your ability to do that, and I always joke with people about using words they've learned in therapy.
Yeah.
The reason I think it's helpful is what you're describing when you say that to him is not, hey, you did something wrong, or you're like, I'm having an experience that is not helpful to us, so I want to go change my experience.
Yeah.
There's no blame involved. There's no judgment. When I can talk about me and my partner can truly believe I'm just talking about me, I'm not saying, well, you're the reason I'm dysregulated.
Sure.
Then it's like, oh, yeah, well, go take a minute. Like, you're just making a request. You're not telling me I did anything wrong. It's much easier to go, oh, sure. Yeah, take some time because I want you to be in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, we have so much more to talk about, but you guys are going to have to wait until next week to hear the rest. So we have talked about relationships, focusing on communication, healthy repair, and connecting with your partner or your spouse in the midst of the chaos. But what about you? How are you showing up in that relationship? And shouldn't that be where the work starts? So next week, we will continue this conversation and focus on what would happen if we reparented ourselves. So as always, thank you for listening. You are doing better than you think. I'm Jodi Grace, and this is Co-Parenting with Grace.